My name is Caroline Poynton from Manchester, Bury. I'm recording this because I'm right again. It's all about oil. Yes, it is. It's all about controlment and oil. And what I don't get with England, after the war, they should have done something that we would never have to go to the Middle East, Russia, or anywhere around the world for oil ever again. Because if they did what I'm saying, and it is possible because I've had a look into it, so it could have been possible. Well, it might have not been straight after the war. It probably would have been, could have been in the middle 90s maybe, or 80s or something, 70s, or maybe even a bit more than that, in the 2000s or something. If they had built, and I tell you what, why have we got one refinery going towards Germany in the sea, but yet they didn't want to put one into the Southern Irish Sea? Why did they not put an oil refinery into the Southern Irish Sea? Because it could have been done, and then we would never, as England and Europe, have to struggle with oil, and we would have been able to supply France, some parts of Spain, maybe some parts of, well, it all depends. I mean, maybe it would be the piping, but the piping would have gone to France and England. From right through from Ireland somewhere into England, possibly into Wales and through down to wherever. And then the one on the other side where Germany is, that would do the other side of England and all of Germany, and the other side of Europe, all of Finland and everything. And then Europe would have been okay for oil for the rest of their lives. Now, I want to know who caused this, who said no to putting an oil refinery in the middle of the sea, in the middle of the Southern Irish Sea, the stupid bastards.
The British government is in crisis tonight.
Yeah.
This is the most significant challenge that we have faced as a nation since the Cambridge firing compromised British and American security under the Soviet Union, or in the days of the Soviet Union. I will tell you now that there is a Chinese spy that has compromised the very upper echelons of the British government. He is somebody who is now passing information to the Chinese government, who is ensuring that the good decisions made by the British cabinet are in fact those that are ordered by President Xi Jinping of China. But you won't read about this in the newspapers, you won't see it in the mainstream media, and in fact there is no investigation or attempt. Special branch have not been called in, and that is because there is now a collective effort to deny this is taking place at all. I'm going to tell you what has gone on. I'm going to give you the case for one of our own people having changed sides. Now, I cannot tell you who the potential spy is or who the suspects are, but let me tell you this. I strongly believe that we should ask for the help of the National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, or indeed get some action from the Attorney General, Richard Hermer. Now, as I said, I've not told you who the suspects are for being the Chinese agents at the top of government. I'm merely just suggesting that those people could assist us with the investigation. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do share it with your friends. It's absolutely vital that we get this message out. Apologies if it sounds like conspiracy theory. I'm hoping that when we spend this couple of minutes together, you will by the end of it accept that my point is absolutely right and there is overwhelming evidence that it is true. Also, this video is supported by the Patriot Fund. You can donate below. Please do help us with this big Christmas appeal.
Just without the actual blowing,
so what has happened? People up. Last week, Dominic Cummings said that he was called into the bunker under Downing Street along with Boris Johnson and the Chancellor of the Exchequer at the time, who I think was Jeremy Hunt. Okay, and he was told by the Cabinet Secretary and the head of MI5 that Britain's diplomatic cables had been intercepted. But not so much that they'd been hacked, that would have been bad enough. In fact, the whole infrastructure was owned by the Chinese. That is to say,
And
that
I've
the
got that
pipe that sends the
2019.
data was itself owned by China. It had been acquired by the Chinese.
Like the things
Now,
that they lost.
we don't know whether they could read the encrypted data,
Yeah,
but we
they
know
can.
they had it. Now, just
Yeah,
to
they
explain
can.
to you, for those who aren't
Yes,
technically
they can.
minded,
Well,
when
if
you're
I
watching
find
this
it, I'll
video,
read it.
there's encryption,
I
which
can
means
find
what
out to
happens
read
is,
it. They
if
can read it.
anybody
They're not
is
stupid,
monitoring
mate.
your internet connection, they're not seeing this video, they're seeing a stream of numbers. Your computer has a code to unlock it,
Yeah.
and YouTube have a code to
Yeah.
unlock it, and you need the code in order to work out what was being sent.
Check.
Now, it is not impossible to break that encryption, though I accept it's very hard.
Yes,
The
they
suggestion is that what China has done is kept all of this data, awaiting a time when quantum computing will make this type of encryption really very easy to solve. So what we're saying now is that for years, MI6 and the British Diplomatic Service was sending government cables via an unsecure, actually that's the wrong phrase, an unsafe network owned by the Chinese. This is unbelievable because the company
but
that
they're
the
owned
British
by the
got to
Chinese,
do the
not by
cables
England.
was openly bought by the Chinese.
sold
It
everything
wasn't
out
that we didn't know.
after
It's
the
that
war.
we didn't care.
They told us we won
That
the war. We
is,
didn't win
you know,
the war at
perhaps
all. We
a
lost.
mistake. But that's only the start of this. Let me now go to the next
That was a
problem.
lie.
We come across the issue with the Chagos Islands. Now let me tell you,
Chagos Islands
that's
are
the only
with
reason
nuclear
that
weapons
China
on.
has not invaded Taiwan is because it doesn't have enough oil. And so it needs to sail oil from the Middle East. China has every resource possible other than oil. So what it's done is it's funded campaigns to move to electric vehicles in the West whilst buying oil from the Middle East. Now the problem is, oil is quite hard to ship from the Middle East to China. So they've done two things. They've got tankers, which are sailing around India, and of course they've also got the pipeline going through Uyghur. The reason why 1.5 million Uyghurs are in concentration camps is not because they're Muslims, it's because they're opposing the pipeline. And President Xi Jinping needs the pipeline.
We're opposing things. See, it's got
This
nothing to
sounds
do
right,
with
I'll get
colour,
there in a
it's to
minute.
do with them.
So,
when you
the
say
reason
something about the
that
fucking
Americans
government.
like the face of Diego Garcia is because they know that if China invades Taiwan, what will happen is they'll be able to sink the Chinese oil tankers and the Chinese will run out of oil and that will significantly decline their ability
we need to go
to
to war with
invade
China
Taiwan.
then, don't
So, Diego Garcia is absolutely vital. So, inexplicably, the British government decided to give the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, and independent Mauritius has never ruled the Chagos Islands, but nonetheless, we gave it to them. Well, there was this guise of this court case, by the way. It was British lawyers that represented the government of Mauritius. Now, Mauritius is a vassal state to China, and today, the Chagos Islands have begun negotiations, or rather Mauritius has begun negotiations to sell China part of the archipelago, and so China is now going to have a listening station, and then in the fullness of time, there's going to be the removal of the British and American base from Diego Garcia. So the main impediment to World War III starting was now not only given away by the British government, but we paid Mauritius to take it. Starmer lied in front of the House of Commons. He told them
and he's still not
China
been arrested.
opposed the Chagos Island deal. Unbelievably, they've literally been there today looking at building their own base. So now we know that we've willfully compromised our diplomatic cables. We also now know that the Attorney General Richard Herman and others have deliberately given the Chagos Islands to China, or to Mauritius, in order to give it to China, in order to undermine British and America's ability to limit President Xi Jinping. Well, that's amazing. We not only gave it away, we paid them to take it, a country that has never ever ruled it. Oh, by the way, just to be clear, the people of the Chagos Islands opposed it being going to Mauritius because what they said was they wanted to become an independent country called the Chagos Islands. And so we talked about giving it to the people of the Chagos Islands. We didn't even do that. So even the locals were opposed to this deal. So next, let's talk now about the Chinese Super Embassy. So the Chinese Super Embassy is a phenomenal facility. It's on the old Royal Mint next to Cowbridge and the Town Line. Now, the location of it is significant. The reason why it is located in the location it is has got nothing to do with the great views over the River Thames. It's got nothing to do with its proximity to the Crown Jewels. What it is effectively located at the top of Commercial Road. Now, what Commercial Road is, it leads from the City of London to Tower Hamlets, the Isle of Dogs. Yeah. And you think, well, okay, why would you care about that? Because the principal cables running between banks and financial regulators run from the City of London to Canary Wharf along that street. The Chinese embassy is being built above all of the communications infrastructure that protects British banking, the British economy, and indeed a great deal more beyond that. They've put a basement within it, which is now described as the biggest Chinese listening station in the world, and it's literally above the cables. Once again, they don't have a way of encrypting this at the moment. But when quantum computing comes in, they will. Now, there's also the complaints about the local residents.
I'm trying to find out who's above King Charles.
They're complaining.
Who's telling King Charles what to do?
Will also have flats for 300 or 400 Chinese diplomats. Now,
and the government.
Embassies always have accommodation available, apart from the Ecuadorian one, because Julian Assange had to sleep on the
then it'd be easier, and then we might have to fight back.
For people visiting and so on and so forth.
With all the answers,
in this case, it's hundreds of people who will fly from Beijing to London, who will live in the embassy, work in the embassy, and never leave the embassy. Who are these people? Is it not legitimate for me to say that, at least to an extent,
who are these
the
people?
Chinese are supposed to be
Who is the country?
an embassy is supposed to be front fencing, and it's supposed to be not supposed to get out and about, right? They're supposed to be
but then there's no accountability for anybody anymore. It could be anyone.
These people are not doing that. Now, MI5, MI6, NATO, the French security services, everybody in Europe, the EU, the FBI, CIA, everybody is opposed to this development. The head of MI6 has begged the government not to allow this to be built. Tower Hamlets Council are also opposed to it. They're opposed to it for a different reason, because within these Chinese embassies there are snatch squads and cells, so they literally kidnap dissidents and keep them in the embassy. They're not meant to do it, but it's quite hard to do. Quite hard to stop them if they do it. And by the way, people in the description who are saying it's not an embassy, it's a chancellery, don't be pedantic, it's called the Union Jack. Anyway, so against all of those details, surely the British government would be opposed to it. Not a bit of it. They have called in the decision, and that is to say, for those of you who don't know anything about local government, that Tower Hamlets Council, who are the local planning authority, have said no to the super embassy, and using powers over critical infrastructure, the British government has called it in and given themselves the right to overturn the decision.
Yes,
now, I will tell you something. Critical infrastructure is supposed to be things like airports. It's supposed to be things like railway stations. It's not supposed to be the biggest phone tapping operation in the world. Run by Beijing in the centre of London.
They want them to do it. Well, they want them to do it for digital ID.
About the cabinet. Why is it that they are saying this is a great idea?
For digital ID.
The National Security Advisor was in favour of it. And now let's look.
There you go. And I don't know why they're bringing all these labels in.
We don't
and then
know
they give them a phone. And then they say, no,
with the spy masters, and we don't know where all this money came from.
Yeah.
But let's move on from that. But obviously, the key thing is this infiltration in the House of Commons. Now, if you go to September the 11th,
and he said something to Katie as well.
I don't know what he said, World Trade Center.
It wasn't good.
President George Bush did not stand up and say the following: well, this is actually the actions of a friendly organisation, because we've never specifically said you are our enemy. You don't have to explicitly say this person is my enemy in order for them to be your enemy. I mean, that is absolute garbage. We don't list every single person and organisation that we are opposed to and say, we don't like you. It's ludicrous. It's also saying, as an example, if I got attacked on the street, well, you've never said the mugger was your enemy, therefore it's considered a friendly incident. Well, that's ludicrous. So the case collapsed. There was all the evidence that China had spied.
Like with everything
the big issue about the case, by the way, was whether the guys themselves knew that they were handing over privileged information to the Chinese government. So that was going to be the crux of the case. The details of it were not in dispute. But the whole
The digital ID.
We didn't specifically say China was our enemy, therefore it doesn't count. Was garbage.
He's our best friend now.
The Attorney General, Lord Hermer, and Jonathan Powell were the
China
people
was
behind
ours,
that decision. Not that they told the
friend.
CPS what to do, but they said that the British government would not stand by the claim.
That's why they allowed
that
them to
China
go
was
in,
their enemy
coronavirus,
because
that's
it
why
didn't
no one
say
wants
it
to war
at
with
the
them.
time. And the case then
No one's going
collapses.
to go to war with fucking
So what are we
China.
now getting in total here?
The Chinese spies, they're going to go to war with them. We had Russian spies, and they're going to go to war with
being
Russia.
built against the advice of
Yeah, they don't
everybody.
go to war with China.
Diplomatic cables
Nope.
being intercepted. We've got the assets being not even given away, paying them to take it. And then we've got a group of people like me who are saying, this is simply impossible. It's not a believable thing that all of these decisions, which are plainly against the British national interest, it's not possible to believe that they are all just a coincidence. The Queen, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, I should say, was furious about the Chinese state visit, and yet she was forced to do it by the National Security Advisor Jonathan Powell and others. Lord Hermer, of course, was working for the Chinese government as a lawyer at the time of that state visit. So, I'm telling you right now that the only way that we could possibly explain all of these anomalous decisions is that someone is driving it. Now, I've not told you the names of the suspects, but time and time again, the same two names keep cropping up. I don't know whether they're compromised, whether it's a sexual thing. I don't know whether they've been paid, and I don't know whether they're so deluded that they are assisting China anyway, but it doesn't matter what the motivation is. Remember the big problem with the Cambridge spies. Well, Cambridge spies genuinely supported socialism. They genuinely liked the Soviet Union, and when they first got involved, the Soviet Union was Britain's ally. And where it ended was an unbelievable disaster for Britain. You've got to act in the interests of the country that pays you. Yeah. You can't be compromised, and you've got to put your own personal opinion out of the way. And with that in mind, you know, Keir Starmer is very good at constantly saying, I wasn't involved, I didn't see the file. This is now something that ought to be passed to special branch. I'm alleging that there is an attack on our democracy. I'm saying that,
so that
okay,
means
I've
that
that I've got no evidence of somebody directly passing information over. But we do know that vast amounts of British intelligence have been leaked. By the way, leaked at the time that Prince Andrew was dealing with the Chinese.
Prince Charles,
although,
King Charles,
in his defence, how much of this would he have actually had in his possession? But okay, so we know the Chinese are working on this. We know they're attempting to compromise it. We know in the case of the two guys that they did compromise them because they're defensive. They didn't know they were giving away state secrets. And so now, if special branch were to come in, we've got to look at this properly. Because this is a really serious issue. Let's just be clear what we're talking about here. China, if it does start World War III, which it might, certainly over Taiwan, the first thing they're going to do is do things like cut off our critical infrastructure, shut down the internet, and cripple us operationally. We cannot allow that to happen. You know, we've got our diplomatic cables going via Chinese systems. If they turn them off, we can't put our diplomatic cables out. Now you think about it. If they cut the internet to the United Kingdom, you know, okay, it would probably take us 3 days to get something back up and running. But, you know, in 3 days of nobody being able to contact each other, a great deal can take place. I think we all forget about the role of intelligence. And I do want to say, I had a very good friend of mine who was the charge d'affaires of the Armenian embassy, and that is to say that he was doing the job of the ambassador, but he hadn't been appointed as the ambassador. And the reason he hadn't been appointed was because he was just acting. The ambassador actually died. And I asked him about intelligence, because obviously part of what any embassy does is pass on intelligence to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And what he said was, he said, look, we send an email every Friday with bullet points of what's going on. Now you think it's all James Bond and all this sort of thing. It's not. You know, for him it was things like, you know, trade deals with former Soviet countries. What is the relationship with President Putin? Things like an early day motion had gone down to recognise the Armenian genocide. All these sorts of things. So obviously, the Armenian embassy is not bothered about the operational capability of the Trident nuclear weapons platform because it's just not of interest to them. And so I do say that I do feel sorry for the Chinese spies simply because they are passing information in what they think is quite mundane, a mundane fashion, but it's still very useful to Beijing. So I understand that we do have to educate people, that they could be members of Friends of whatever, and actually that'd be extremely damaging. A friend of mine set up Conservative Friends of Russia, and because the Russian embassy was trying to use it for spying, they had to close it down. I know it wasn't his fault, he got into a bit of trouble about it, but you know, it was not his mistake. So I do get that we've got to understand that, and I think one thing that we don't do in Britain and America is recognise that when you meet somebody who's officially from a company in China, they will also be a government official. So we don't.
But I mean,
I get all that.
My point is,
but
no,
at
my
the same
point
time,
is,
we are
my
massively
point is,
undermining Britain's ability to defend its position. We are
exactly,
massively
and we should
letting down
be
the Five
fucking
Eyes network. We are
snapping
massively
China off because they cause
undermining the work
coronavirus.
of the United States of
We should
America.
be taking
And it's
lead
not that
and
we're doing it
taking war.
accidentally, because that will always happen. It's that we're doing it willfully.
I don't mean we have to go and blow things up. I mean war, as in we
building a listening station above our most
we
important
should be doing what Donald Trump's doing, tariffing people and things like that. That type of war, political wars.
That there is a
And
Chinese
then if it
spy,
comes to a
multiple
proper
Chinese
war,
spies at the heart of the British government, and somebody needs to do something about it. And,
Exactly,
and
but
I tell
political
you,
wars,
if we don't do that,
that's what
we've
should
got
be doing.
real problems, because there are threats and challenges in the world. All these people who talk about queers for Palestine and all that sort of thing, they forget that for most of human history, there wasn't rule of law, there wasn't property rights, there wasn't any recognition of the family. You got somebody clumped you over the head and stole what they wanted from you. It is not a fait accompli that Western liberal democracy will continue. It's not a fait accompli that you will have your free speech or democracy. These things are not practiced in the majority of countries in the world. We have to stand up for our country, and part of that is to find this spy and to lock him up. Please do donate to the Patreon fund, the link is below. Probably going to have a few legal problems down with this video because the Chinese are going to watch. Please do share it as well, because I'm sure the Chinese bot farms will go against this. Please do share, thanks a lot. Until next time, goodbye.
I know what he's saying about Prince Harry, but to be honest with myself, apart from Meghan, if he would get rid of Meghan and divorce her, to be honest with myself, and bring the children back to England, it's not the children's fault. It's not their fault. You know, I can't blame children, their children, for this. It's not their fault that she's a fucking bitch. Prince Meghan, not Prince Meghan anyway, she's Meghan. And if he would divorce her, well, that would be the best thing he would do. And then I think that he should come back to England and bring the children back. It's going to take some time for him to build back up with William and Katie. It's going to take a lot of bridges with him. But maybe he can build that up. I'm not being funny, but on the base of the children. I know it's like using the children for something, but it's not in a bad way. It's in a very good way. It's better than what she's doing to her children and using them in a bad way. And social services don't take her kids off her. Oh no. But they take mine off me and pour her into danger. Sadiq Khan and King Charles and the government. Oh yeah, pedo fucking services. Because they're all complicit with each other. Well, thanks very much. They better go and get my little girl back to her mother, me, in Bury, Manchester, Caroline Poynton. Thank you very much.